Okay. Thanks, William. Thank you, sir.
It's last page. These are all of the.
Mm-hmm.
Number 12 was the last one.
Are you ready?
No,
Okay.
I'm just looking this over.
just waiting for staff.
Give us a minute just to look this
Okay.
condition 12 that was just. Charlie, roll call, please.
Robert Inserpi.
Here.
Chairman Brunswick.
Here.
Richard Donnelly.
Here.
James Worcester.
Here. Okay, continuing on.
Neil Montgomery, I would like to call Ted Treesh in rebuttal.
Okay. Ted Treesh. Is he in the room?
Yes.
Oh, there he is, behind the podium.
Ted Treesh, for the record, TR Transportation.
Mr. Treesh,
Do we want to wait for Jackie?
Here she comes.
Yeah, thank you.
the zoning traffic analysis that you performed, was it performed in accordance with the administrative code?
Yes, it was.
Does the administrative code give you an option about whether to use a historic growth rate or, quote, vested trips?
Yes.
Does the county or the city have reliable data on, quote, vested trips?
To my knowledge, no. When this first issue came up with the vested trips, in this case, I've been doing traffic studies in Bonita Springs prior to the city being annexed, so are created. And in Lee County and in the city, we have never used vested trips as a method of looking at future traffic conditions. It's commonly called the build-up method. Now, there's two ways to project traffic in the future. You either grow it up based on historical trends, or you build it up by looking at other approved projects. What we found and what the county has found is that basically the best way to predict the future is look at what's happened in the past. And so we look at the traffic growth that's happened over the past several years, and then keep that same growth rate and project it out another, in this case, out to 2022. Because there may be vested trips from development orders that are approved, but we just simply don't know when those are going to be put on the road network. I mean, it's home sales, that's what usually drives trip generation. When new residents move to the area, it's not shopping, it's not retail. Those attract trips from the residents that are moving and shopping in the area. So it's best that we found in our research and our analysis and the county's proven methods that we look at what's happened in the past in terms of a growth rate and then applying that. In this process, we were told about the vested trips early on, but we were never provided that information, and we were only provided that information when we were issued the staff report. And so I've never actually seen the data from where the vested trips have come from. I've been told that it was mainly from the projects out east, sections 1 and 2, Bonita National, those large residential projects that are out east on Bonita Beach Road. So, I can see from a city's perspective how they would want to track those trips as development orders are approved from a capital improvement standpoint, but from a process of a zoning and a traffic analysis, looking at what's happened in the past, in the recent past in terms of growth rate, has been the most efficient and best method to project what's it going to look like in 5 or 6 years when this project builds out. And that's what we're simply talking about. We're only going out 5 or 6 years. We're not going out 20 or 30 years. That's what the long-range transportation plan and the comprehensive plan looks at, as well as the long-term impacts of all those projects on the roadway network.
Bonita Beach Road is a county road under county jurisdiction, is it not?
That's correct.
Does the county identify what they believe the current level of service is on that road?
Yes.
What does the county say their road is operating at?
Currently, it's a level service C.
And if the road were going to fail, would the county have an obligation to program improvements?
Yes.
Are there any programmed improvements west of 41 on Bonita Beach Road?
West of 41, no.
One of the ladies who spoke said it's premature because we haven't done any analysis, and you've just indicated that we have. Will you have to do a development order TIS for the development order application to the county, since we have to get an LDO for any impact on Bonita Beach Road?
Yes.
Will you have to do a DO analysis with the city?
Yes.
And we'll also have to do a traffic analysis for the proportionate share.
That's correct.
And we'll also have to do another analysis for the shuttle, pursuant to the staff shuttle condition.
Pursuant to the condition, yes.
So in the conditions, there's 4 more traffic studies that have to be done.
Quite a few layers, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Do
other
you have any
questions?
questions of
Yeah.
Mr. Trish?
For the record, Jacqueline Ginson, I have a copy of this county's CIP projects for fiscal years 15, 16, and 19, 20, and Bonita Beach Road Phase 3 is programmed in their 6 to 10 year budget. And of course,
I believe that's east. Is that east of
I
41?
think it's east.
Phase 3 is actually from Old 41 up to Windsor.
To Windsor.
Just a little bit past.
Just a little
Just a
past.
little west of
That's
41, okay.
That's
And that's from when, Jackie? When,
It's for 6 to 10 year plan, but of course, with our discussions on doing the visioning, the Phase 3 could change into something else. It just kind of depends how those discussions go.
okay.
And for the record, Audrey Vance, I wrote at the request of the city manager, I wrote the county attorney a letter as to the master transportation agreement, in particular, Agreement 7 that we have as a JPA, to that agreement as to whether it had expired, and the county was very clear, and this has priorities for that area of projects slated, to Luke, Windsor, and the county was very clear that they did not consider that expired. They considered that ongoing projects.
Okay, so it's relevant. Okay,
Yeah, and the only other comment I want to make for the record is there's been a lot of discussion about parking. Parking requirements for hotels, for multifamily, for retail are all identified in the Land Development Code. And those are all in effect. We're going to have to comply with all those. If we can't build it if we can't park it. And we don't have any deviation from the number of required spaces. So I know there's concerns, but there's need not be, because we're never going to get a development order unless we have the required parking.
yeah, I think that was made clear earlier, thank you. Yes, Jackie?
And then I wanted to just bring up Tom Ross, our transportation engineer, relative to the growth trend concern that we have with how the county has previously done their methodologies.
Okay,
Tom Ross, for the record. One of the discussions is about the growth rates. And I think one of the things that we have to be very careful about is when we're looking at what the past trends are and projecting those forward, sometimes those past trends change in their direction, whether they're going increasing or decreasing. And the last 10 years, give or take or accepting the last few years, is a perfect example. We saw traffic decreasing over many years because of the downturn in the development. So we had that going on. But we've seen that turn around, and we've seen an increase in the last few years. And a perfect example is the count station, which is right in front of this development, right on that block on Bonita Beach Road, just to the east of Vanderbilt Road. There's a traffic count station that the FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, maintains. They keep a 365-day count going on there. They count every hour all year long. And they have data that shows what the 100th highest hour volume is for that segment of roadway right in front of this development in the peak direction. In 2014, that number was 1,552 cars going in the peak direction. In 2015, last year, it was 1,625, an increase of roughly 5%, doing the math roughly. So those trends you can see are starting to turn, and we haven't even gotten the count for this year for this past period. And those peaks happen during your peak season, which is typically January through March, I think somewhere in that time frame. So, and in answering some of the questions that were discussed earlier about whether we're double counting or not, the method that we have asked the applicant to apply is not to double count that. We've asked them to take what is the existing count and then add in those vested trips. What they did show is they showed two methods. They showed one method where they increased traffic using a growth rate, a smaller growth rate than the one I just demonstrated. And then they did another method, and it's included in the report that's in the package, that shows the background, or shows the existing count, and it happens to show the one from 2014, because they didn't have yet the one from 2015, of 1,552 vehicles in the peak hour. And then they added in those vested trips. And that analysis in their own report shows that it's over capacity at that point. So it's level of service F. So just to correct that statement is that the existing or the background condition with the project trips from this project, the roadway conditions will be at level of service F.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One quick thing to this note, because I've, not being a traffic guy, it's made my
Who
head.
are you?
My name's Omer Jor, for the record. Not being a traffic guy, all of this has made my head hurt, and I've mentioned that quite a few times. What I've said all along is, clearly there's a change in the way the city's going about doing their analysis. Obviously, Ted has done the analysis in Lee County for many years. Lee County has historically used their whatever the actual traffic count is that day, plus some growth rate. A year ago, when we came in and we asked for what the methodology the city wanted to use, what we were told was that we need help us think one through, because they didn't have one yet. It appears that over that last year they've come up with one, and now they are not quite there yet with putting it into their land development code, and at some point they will. What I've said is that when we come in for DO, we'll abide by whatever that land development code is at that point. And so whatever that methodology is, I do agree with our side, obviously I do, but I do also agree with our side in terms of the methodology and Lee County's methodology, just as a developer, which has a different perspective than just traffic consultants. And the reason for that is that everyone gets development orders. I had a development order on this site for 60,000 feet of commercial space. People having development orders isn't what causes them to actually build. The market is what causes people to build. If the market increases, you'll see a ton of new development. If the market doesn't increase or goes down, as you saw in 2006 to 2010, then you see development stop. So outstanding development orders really aren't what cause people to build. It's the market that causes people to build. There's going to be higher moments of the market. There's going to be softer moments in the market. So that rate's going to adjust. Lee County obviously uses the growth rate. We're happy to use whatever that methodology is at the end. So yeah, I don't think that clearly that methodology has yet been put into the LDC, as far as I understand.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Are you wanted to
Sorry.
say something?
For the record, Jacqueline Genson, I'm just trying to go through public comments and make sure that we address any of their concerns. So I know parking was a concern, and Neil did touch on that. Our land development code does have specific requirements for parking. They also have specific parking requirements for meeting space, which is what the meeting space, the ballrooms would be calculated at. So again, depending what comes in for development order, they will be adhered to that standard to make sure that whatever they're proposing, they can park it based on the land development code. And they are correct, there are no parking deviations requested for the hotel use.
Thanks for that clarification.
Sure. There was a concern about the Bonita Springs Fire District, and if they had any comments based on their station off of Mango. I did receive a letter of support. They were a part of the notification, one of the properties within 375 feet. So Tim Fernandez did submit a letter supporting the project. There is an emergency light, but as many have attested here, lights sometimes don't mean anything for people. They'll queue, but they do have certain controls that can make the lights go green. But the fire district didn't have any objections to the request in terms of being a property owner and being able to service that area. Again, with the intensity, staff feels based on the recommended conditions for height limitations, the number of rooms will be self-regulating based on parking and the heights. I mean, depending on the size of the units, depending on the size of the ballroom space and the ancillary commercial uses, at the end of the day, they have to be able to park it and fit it in the development standards. So, for intensity purposes, we felt it was self-regulating. I'm not a hotel expert in terms of what can fit in that area, but in terms of what can fit in that box and what they can park, it will become self-regulating.
Let me ask you a question, Roger Brunswick, for the record on this. When we're talking about parking, obviously, we've been talking primarily about parking for guests. There's going to be a component in this project for a large meeting space or a meeting space. And when we talk about the parking, do we talking about just hotel rooms? I've heard that mentioned. Or do we talk about total usage if they have a 300-seat ballroom, let's say? I don't know what it's going to be. How does that come into the discussion? How do we break
So for each use, for example, the multifamily, depending on the number of rooms that unit will have, there's a parking ratio for that. So that's for the multifamily. So if it's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, there is a requirement for that. There's also a requirement for guest parking for the multifamily. So they have to comply with that with the remaining 140 units. For hotels, it's 1.2 parking spaces per hotel room. And that's to offset some of the employees that are used to service that. So one car, but now we have 1.2. But the 1.2 is to address the ancillary functions to support that hotel room. The ballroom and meeting space would be assessed or 1 space per 100 square feet of area. That is the meeting hall requirement. Any type of lounge, so a cocktail bar or lounge would have to support the parking requirement in the LDC for that. Same with a restaurant. So all of those parking requirements would be required to be demonstrated at time of local development order. Depending for whatever they want to construct, they have to support the parking for whatever they submit.
Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody out there? So I'll open it up for, we'll call for a motion.
Did you want to go over each condition where there's the 3 conditions where we're agreeing to disagree? Or you should probably
I
go
suppose
over
it
those
would be
first.
helpful.
How about
Since
if
you
you have
brought it up.
questions, we can answer them.
Well, we're going to ask for a motion first, and then there'll
Okay.
be discussion after that. That was what I was going to do. But is that agreeable? Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Worcester?
I move that this petition be denied for minimally the following reasons, in no order of importance of these to be listed reasons. The applicant is asking for an 9.5 multiplier of allowable hotel motel units above the existing zoning. This will undoubtedly increase an already in-season overloaded traffic situation on existing roadways. I understand Florida state laws states that denial cannot be based on increase in traffic of an existing low level of service road. However, this requested level of increase is way beyond reasonable. Number 2, if you add the already approved 140 multifamily units, there could be a total of 390 hotel plus a total of 220 multifamily, equaling 610 housing units on this site. Just as a comparison, the Hyatt Resort and Spa in Coconut has only 450 guest rooms, according to their website. The proposed number of units requested at this site is 1/3 bigger than the Hyatt Resort Spa. This site does not fit what is being requested by the applicant. Number 3, the intensity and massing the proposed buildings and requested increase in allowable height to 75 feet is detrimental to the character of the adjacent neighborhoods. The buffer suggested does not offer an adequate solution. Number 4, Luke Street is a one-lane road immediately north of the subject project. Additional traffic produced by this project will greatly exacerbate the current problem of using Luke Street in combination with Quails Walk to the east as a bypass of the Bonita Beach Road congestion. The applicant does not address a solution to additional traffic, including trucks, delivery trucks, passing through this residential area. Number 5, stormwater detention for a project of this acreage is a lot of water to detain, and it's not directly addressed.
I have to object for the record, with all due respect, because there's no
Well,
evidence on the record in regards to stormwater.
Let's let him just finish, then we'll have comments.
Number 6, condition 12 describes the intended shuttle service. Staff recommendations A through C places a burden on the city to police the agreed to parameters. If the applicant fails to meet the requirements agreed to, the project would then be in default. However, the project would be in place. The remedy would be a retrofit of parking and other impacts. Unfortunately, additional land to retrofit would not be available on the site because the site would be fully developed. The resolve of potential non-compliance problem is not resolved by the wording of condition 12. Finally, this application is way beyond a minor adjustment of the existing road zoning allowables.
That's a motion. Thank you for your motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
Richard Donnelly, for the record, I second the motion.
Okay. And before
Question on the motion?
Before we call for a vote,
Okay,
we'll
I'm sorry.
open for discussion of the motion.
Yeah. I'm sort of on the fence. Bob and Serpy, for record. I'm sort of on the fence, yes and no. You've heard the problems that have been brought up by the board. Would you be willing to go back to the drawing board and address these issues and then come back? If so, we can adjourn and continue this. But quite a nice laundry list that Mr. Worcester brought up, and I think if you're really sincere, you want to discuss it, want to go back and then come back in front of us, that's an
Yeah,
option.
let me just talk about traffic, because, I mean, one of the reasons I asked Ted about the fact that we're gonna have to do 4 traffic analysis, I understand traffic is a concern. If you don't approve us, the growth rate that will continue, and you don't have anybody contributing to a solution, if you're gonna actually pursue the quadrant study, you need this parcel to be part of your solution. So, I think your conditions that the staff has come up with are somewhat unique, and they're somewhat onerous, but I think they address your concern. On Luke Street, I believe the applicant and you can include it as a condition, has indicated that they would do the widening and the two-laning of Luke Street. Again, if you're gonna have a quadrant study where you're gonna send people up that road and over to 41 that way, you need that improved. You can make that a condition of approval rather than say it's a problem. Condition 12, in regards to the violation, we're the ones that suggested $1,000. The staff didn't agree with that. The staff has a surety, so they put in a requirement that if there's a problem, they cash the bond and they solve the problem. So I think the staff condition addresses your concern. Are there other, in the stormwater, again, I don't understand where that came from because we have an ERP. We'll have to modify the ERP. We're not allowed, our pre and post development runoff has to be the same. So we're not going to be able to increase runoff on anyone, and we are gonna have to meet all the water quality standards, and the water quality attenuation standards have changed since this project was originally approved. So the whole, so we will have to be in compliance with the district's current requirements. So I don't know where that came from since I didn't hear anything in the record on stormwater. But if there's something else that we need to address in terms of adding conditions, we're amenable to that, so. But I don't know that I heard any other issues other than the,
I'd also like to
No.
address one. Oh,
go ahead.
Let him talk.
You want to respond to Mr. Surfy's
Yeah.
question? Yeah.
yeah, I'm responding to
Go ahead.
Robin Serp's question. One other thing in
And
terms
you
of.
are.
My name's Omer Jor, for the record. So you were asking about the conditions that Mr. Worcester had mentioned. We already are approved right now for 60,000 feet of commercial space, 220 residential, and 40 hotel rooms. When you look at the traffic, and I know everyone keeps bringing up traffic as being a huge issue, this site is already approved right now for a significant traffic driver onto Bonita Beach Road. So with approval or without approval, it's still a significant driver. And I think that it's to the benefit of the city to work with a developer on a site plan where the developer wants to have the same vision as the city does. Now, you're gonna create the traffic one way or another. In other words, the site will be developed. You know, I know people are worried about construction. Construction happens no matter what happens on that site. That site's not gonna stay empty land on Bonita Beach Road, and if it does, then all the money being spent right now in the visioning study is a waste. Because the whole purpose of the visioning study is to improve Bonita Beach Road. And you don't get a lot of opportunities. Real estate cycles go in cycles. So when that cycle is moving up, that's a really great opportunity for the city to take advantage of a developer that wants to work with them. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and no further discussion. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I think we have, when you read the comp plan and you talk about the vision that the comp plan has for the city, you know, it talks about things like community of human scale, protection of the environment, walkable community. It talks about access to parks. It talks about a community with heart. And it talks about an efficient transportation system, whether it be on Bonita Beach Road or wherever it might be. I think I think we have a lot of respect for what Mr. Dorer has done at the existing project. It's beautifully done. It's well managed. But I think at the root of all of our concern is when you visualize a Ritz-Carlton and its massive amenity package, when you visualize the Hyatt Regency and you with its amenities and its location and its land area, and when you transpose that onto this fairly tight site, not all of which is going to be used for the hotel, but some of which will be used to continue the very successful residence, individual condos that have been built there. I think the basic problem is that it's just too intense. And I think that's what Mr. Mercer tried to address in his motion. And that's my position too for the board. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we've got, any other comments? Okay.
One more question. Bob and Serpy for the record. You feel that there's tweaking that you can do on your part, readdressing all this? Do you feel that way? Because if you do, I strongly suggest you ask for a continuance.
So, over the last year and a half, we've definitely asked for any input. Luckily, we have had some zoning members look at the application and give us their input, and clearly, we've made the adjustments for that. We've always said if there were specific, defined inputs of change this, and the city would be more supportive, we'd be happy to do that. But we can't chase a moving wall. We've spent a year and a half and significant amounts of money. It's very difficult to do a project this size when you don't know going in what will or won't be approved, and there's a limit to what you can do. We're not going to ask for a continuance. If there is something that the board sees that they think can be addressed, we'd be happy to address that now, but we can't ask for a continuance.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You've heard quite a few complaints about the amount of rooms in the hotel.
Yes.
Is it written in stone and in blood that it's got to be 390 rooms?
No. Is there a number that, but at the same time, we've, like, the same answer that I just gave. We started off actually, I think, 490 rooms. We moved down to 480. While talking to staff in terms of people's concerns, we dropped it down to 390. But it's almost like negotiating against yourself. So there is no number that we've been given that says, hey, this is a number that we can actually do. Now, it has to be a number that's sizable enough to be able to fit a full-service hotel.
I understand that. Does any number come into your mind?
Yeah, right now, 390. If there's a lower number than that,
No.
if there's a lower number than that works, absolutely, we're happy to look at that. But for us to just continue to lowering the number, and I mean, again, I'm happy to look at it. I've never gotten a specific number that says, hey, this is the number that we would be comfortable with. And I would hope that those conversations would be ongoing prior to this meeting.
Well, it was brought up at the last meeting by some of the people that were in attendance, and it was brought up by a couple of people again today.
Yeah, and so from that last
Oh.
meeting to this meeting, we've dropped that hotel count by 90 units. Yeah, so I mean, I think we clearly are showing that anytime someone brings something up, we address it, but we can't chase moving walls. I mean, if someone brings it up and says, hey, here, this is the hurdle you have to clear, that's one thing, but otherwise, we just can't do that.
Okay, well, I think we've had about all the discussion we're going to need to make a decision, so everybody's put in input, everybody's put a lot of thought into it. I appreciate everybody's time and effort, and I'll call for a vote. Huh? Oh, read back the motion.
As I understand it, there's a motion to deny. Mr. Worcester stated his basis. I won't repeat everything. Mr. Inserpi stated his basis, and Mr. Donnelly stated his basis. Is there I forgot who was the seconder of the motion? Mr. Donnelly?
Okay. Roll call.
Robert Inserpi,
Let me just clarify, a yes vote would be to accept the motion from Mr. Worcester,
To deny.
to deny.
I don't know.
Mr. Inserpi.
I don't know. I really don't. I can't, I don't want to disapprove it, but too many questions, and so, I don't know.
Do you want to make an alternative motion?
My alternative motion was that they should go back and tweak it and then come back to us. So my motion was have a continuation, but apparently they don't want to continue, so. Guess yes.
Yes to accept.
Mr. Worcester's motion.
Chairman Brunswick,
I do not accept it, no.
Richard Donnelly,
Yes.
and James Worcester.
Yes.
Okay.
This has got to be one of the toughest cases we've had in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Put us people on the fence.
Just as a note, tomorrow's city council meeting, the council does have before them an appointment to the zoning board, so hopefully you will have a new member starting soon.
Before we adjourn, I have the minutes from July 19th to be approved. I look for
Make a
Motion to
motion that
approve.
we accept the minutes from
accept a
July.
second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Wait a minute.
Whoa, 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 you saw business. Vice chair,
Oh,
so you have the choice of Frank or yourselves.
well, we have a vice chair now.
It's once a year.
Oh, we do that once a year? Okay. Okay. I make a motion, I make a motion to have Mr. Inserpi remain as vice chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then,
I have
Next.
a question.
And the next meeting is September 20th, is that?
and we have 3 cases for that day, so will you be in attendance, or can you please check with Charlene to make sure, or to confirm your availability, because we will have 3
She'll
cases.
contact us, surely, she always does. Okay.
Thank you.
Off for adjourn. Well, that'll come, but that's not part of the record. Adjourn.
I know, I'm gonna ask you after that.